Picture this. You're walking along a meticulously crafted stone path. Now imagine that path is 7,000 years old and lies hidden beneath the Adriatic Sea. We're taking a deep dive into an astonishing discovery off the coast of Croatia, a submerged road and settlement that are causing us to reconsider our understanding of Neolithic life. Our focus today is the 7,000-year-old stone road and the settlement it connects to near Korčula Island in Croatia. We'll be exploring the what, who, when, where, and how of this submerged site, extracting the most fascinating knowledge about this Neolithic road and settlement, uncovering what it tells us about the people who built it and their world. So what exactly have archaeologists unearthed down there? What's truly extraordinary is the level of preservation. We're talking about a stone-paved road, roughly 4 meters wide or about 13 feet, currently submerged 4 to 5 meters beneath the Adriatic. What makes this so significant isn't just that it's made of stone, but that it's constructed from carefully stacked slabs. This wasn't just a random pile of rocks. It represents a deliberate and organized construction effort. This road's purpose was to link the main island of Korčula to a Neolithic settlement. And this settlement itself wasn't just on the beach. It was situated on what researchers are describing as an artificially created islet or maybe a modified peninsula, which is also now underwater. So these Neolithic people weren't just building a road, they seem to have been actively shaping their landscape. Alongside this, archaeologists have also discovered stone walls associated with the settlement, probably remnants of buildings. It paints a picture of a substantial, well-thought-out undertaking, a purpose-built stone road leading to a settlement on what might be a man-made island. Where exactly is this? The location is now known as Solin, off the coast of Korčula Island in a sheltered bay, also called Solin, near the modern town of Lombarda. Sheltered is the crucial word here. This bay's natural protection from strong waves, combined with it being gradually buried under layers of sea mud over millennia, is the primary reason this site has remained so incredibly well-preserved for 7,000 years. It was gently entombed, protected from the ravages of time and the sea. It's like finding a perfectly sealed time capsule, just because of the geography. Now let's put this into perspective. When exactly did this road and settlement exist? Radiocarbon dating of preserved wood recovered from the settlement places its origins around 4900 BC, firmly in the late Neolithic period, approximately 7,000 years ago. The road is directly linked to the settlement, so they were contemporary. What's also fascinating is how they first spotted it. Back in 2021, an archaeologist, Mate Perica, noticed some unusual shapes, some formations in satellite images of the seabed. Yes, from satellite images. This initial observation, only possible with modern tech, paved the way for diving expeditions that then confirmed the submerged settlement. The road itself was actually found a bit later during these underwater excavations. The big announcement came in May 2023. It really shows how combining that high-level view with getting your hands dirty, archaeologically speaking, works. The power of combining remote sensing and traditional fieldwork. So who were these people? Who invested so much effort into building this road and maybe even an island? The builders are attributed to the Neolithic Hvar culture, sometimes called the Hvar Lisičići culture. This group flourished along the eastern Adriatic coast during the 5th and 4th millennia BC. The evidence comes from distinctive ornamented pottery found at the site, plus specific types of stone tools, characteristic markers of the Hvar culture. We know they were among the early farming and seafaring peoples in this region. The discovery and the ongoing research are being led by archaeologists from the University of Zadar, most notably Mate Perica, who made that initial satellite observation, and Igor Borzik. They're collaborating with many other institutions and specialists, underscoring how collaborative this kind of underwater work has to be. It takes a multidisciplinary team, divers, archaeologists, dating specialists, geologists, all sorts. Let's circle back to the how. How exactly did they pinpoint and then uncover this? As mentioned, it started with Mate Perica noticing those peculiar shapes in the satellite images. That initial spark prompted a series of diving expeditions to investigate these anomalies firsthand. Those dives confirmed a submerged settlement, stone walls. Then, following that confirmation, they started more detailed underwater archaeological research, careful, systematic excavation of the seabed. And that's what ultimately led to finding the buried stone road itself. It's a fascinating interplay between cutting-edge remote sensing tech and the meticulous hands-on work of traditional archaeology adapted for underwater. So we have this amazing discovery. But what does it actually tell us about the world and the people living 7,000 years ago? To grasp the significance, we need to think about the broader context of 4900 BC and the Hvar culture. They were an early agricultural and seafaring society. While much of what we knew about them before came from cave sites where artifacts preserve well, the discoveries at Solin, and also at a similar site called Gradina Bay, reveal they also established substantial open-air settlements right on the coast. This really challenges the idea of them just being cave dwellers. It's prompting a significant shift in how we understand their settlement patterns. The Neolithic period was transformative. Widespread agriculture, pottery, groundstone tools became essential, and evidence suggests maritime connections and trade networks were already developing. The Solin finds strongly suggest we might need to reconsider the Hvar culture, perhaps viewing them as more of a lost maritime culture, with much more advanced coastal settlement strategies and a deeper connection to the sea than previously appreciated. And what about the environment? Sea levels 7,000 years ago were definitely lower than today, but the Korčula archipelago itself had already formed by around 6,000 BC. So the islands were there. This means the Solin Road and settlement weren't built way out in deep water. They were constructed right at the active coastline at the time, right on the edge. The reason they're now submerged 4 to 5 meters deep is simply the gradual but steady rise in sea levels after the last ice age, post-glacial sea level rise. This site is like a tangible record of how people adapted to a changing coastal landscape and the long-term impact of sea level rise. It's archaeology meeting climate history. Beyond the big structures, the artifacts they're pulling up give invaluable glimpses into daily life. Fragments of Hvar culture pottery, key for identification, preserved wood samples, vital for dating, everyday tools like flint blades, knives, and stone axes for woodworking, bone artifacts, possibly tools or ornaments, and significantly fragments of millstones called querns. Direct evidence of food preparation, likely grinding grains, pointing straight to agriculture. It paints a picture of a settled community, farming, using tools, making pottery. Interestingly, similar finds, including items described as cream blades and fragments of sacrifice found at the nearby Gradina Bay site, hint perhaps at ritualistic activities too. Speaking of Gradina Bay, this isn't just about Solin. Archaeologists have discovered a second remarkably similar submerged Neolithic site there, on the opposite side of Korčula Island, also found at a comparable depth. The settlement there is described as almost identical to Solin in terms of construction and the types of Hvar culture artifacts found. So Solin isn't a one-off unique discovery. Its existence strongly suggests Solin isn't some isolated anomaly, but part of a broader pattern of how the Hvar culture adapted to and used the coastal environment around Korčula. It gives us a valuable comparative case study, suggesting this approach, settling in these near-shore spots now underwater, might have been quite widespread. What's more, the discovery of Gradina Bay was actually prompted by the insight gained from working at Solin. Finding Solin helped them know what to look for. Solin provided a template. Finding one piece of the puzzle helps you recognize the shape of the next. Now back to that road, a 4-meter wide stone road. For Neolithic people 7,000 years ago, that sounds like a significant construction project. What does it tell us about their capabilities? It implies a considerable level of planning, the ability to organize and mobilize a labor force, and quite sophisticated practical engineering knowledge for the time. You'd have to figure out how to quarry the stone, move it, source it, transport it, and then carefully place and stack it to create a stable path across potentially wet or unstable ground near the water. Are there other Neolithic engineering projects like this in Europe? Absolutely. Things like the Sweet Track in England, a preserved wooden walkway, or the Crannogs, artificial islands in Scotland and Ireland, or the prehistoric pile dwellings around the Alps. We see a widespread capacity during the Neolithic for building in or near water. They weren't afraid to get their feet wet. What seems particularly noteworthy about Solin, though, is the specific use of stone construction on this scale for a road. It seems like a unique adaptation using local materials available in the Adriatic. So they were far more capable builders, organizers, maybe even engineers than we might typically picture for that time. These discoveries at Solin and Gradina Bay compel us to rethink our picture of Neolithic coastal life. They reveal a much more significant level of maritime adaptation and engineering prowess within the Hvar culture than previously recognized. The decision to build a settlement on an artificial islet or modified peninsula, and then connect it with a substantial road, that's not trivial. It strongly suggests a deliberate strategic engagement with the coastal environment, likely driven by factors like access to resources, fishing, maybe salt, given the name Solin, facilitating trade, communication, or even defense. Achieving this would have required a good understanding of the marine environment and advanced building techniques for the period. It forces a significant reassessment of the Hvar culture, their complexity, society, and maritime abilities. And the fact these sites are preserved because they're underwater? That's one of the most exciting implications. The exceptional preservation at Solin highlights the immense potential of submerged coastal waters for archaeology globally. It strongly suggests there could be numerous other well-preserved prehistoric sites lying hidden in similar protected environments all around the world. Sites once on the coast but submerged by sea level rise. Solin could genuinely be just the tip of the iceberg, opening promising new avenues for underwater archaeology. It's like a whole hidden layer of human history waiting beneath the waves. Let's delve deeper into Solin itself. Why build a settlement out there on what seems to be an artificial islet? Defense is a strong contender. Being on an islet accessible only via the road provides a clear advantage. Another idea revolves around resource access or control, perhaps better fishing grounds or potential salt resources. It might also have been about status or social differentiation, or perhaps ritual or symbolic significance, as islands often held special meaning. Finally, simple environmental practicalities. Maybe the mainland shoreline was marshy or unsuitable. It was likely a combination of these factors. And the road itself? Daily access to mainland resources, farmland, hunting grounds, fresh water, was undoubtedly primary, but its substantial 4-meter width suggests other purposes too. It likely facilitated transport of goods, harvests, timber, trade items, easier than wading or using small boats. If the islet held ritual importance, the road could have served as a ceremonial pathway, a processional way. It's even conceivable it formed part of a larger coastal communication route, though that's more speculative. Given its scale, it probably served multiple interconnected functions. So many intriguing possibilities. There's still a lot to learn. What are the big unanswered questions? Researchers are still working to fully understand the extent of the settlements at Solin and Gradina Bay, the layout, number of buildings, organization. We need to learn more about specific activities, crafts, social structure, and pinning down primary functions. Was the islet for defense or resources? What was the road most used for? Future work involves more extensive underwater excavations, systematic surveys of other nearby bays for more sites, paleo-environmental studies to reconstruct the ancient landscape, and advanced analysis of artifacts. This is just the beginning of a fascinating story still unfolding. So what are the key takeaways from exploring this sunken highway of Solin? The 7,000-year-old submerged road and settlement offer remarkable insights into the advanced engineering capabilities, significant maritime adaptation, and the nature of coastal life during the Neolithic Hvar culture. This discovery, especially alongside Gradina Bay, fundamentally challenges previous understandings of Neolithic technological abilities and settlement patterns in the Adriatic. It reveals these ancient people were far more resourceful, organized, and intimately connected to their coastal environment than we might have imagined. Imagine that world 7,000 years ago. People aren't just starting farming, they're undertaking ambitious engineering projects, building roads across water, maybe even creating islands. What other hidden histories like this might be lying beneath the waves, waiting to reshape our understanding of the past, and perhaps our relationship with our own changing coastlines today? And perhaps, what might these submerged landscapes ultimately tell us about our own future as sea levels continue to rise? That's a truly profound thought. If this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, look up the archaeological reports and news articles. There's more detail out there. This discovery offers a window into an incredibly rich and complex prehistoric past, and there's always more to learn.